Now I hope you will forgive my rudeness, said the samurai, stretching out casually on his side and propping his graying head on his forearm. The guest who had just arrived at the Tokugenji was Nagaoka Sado, a high-ranking vassal of Lord Hosokawa Tadaoki of Busen. He had little time for personal matters, but he invariably came on such occasions as the anniversary of his father's death, usually staying overnight since the temple was some 20 miles from Edo. For a man of his rank, he traveled unostentatiously, accompanied this time by only two samurai and one young personal attendant. To get away from the Hosokawa establishment even for a short time, he had to trump up an excuse. He rarely had the chance to do as he pleased, and now that he did, he was fully enjoying the local sake while listening to the croaking of frogs. Briefly, he could forget about everything, the problems of administration and the constant need to be attuned to the nuances of daily affairs. After dinner, the priest quickly cleared the dishes and left. Sado was chatting idly with his attendants, who were seated next to the wall, only their faces showing in the light of the lamp. I could just lie here forever and enter nirvana, like the Buddha, said Sado. Sado said lazily, "Careful you don't catch cold, the night air is damp. Oh, leave me alone. This body survived a few battles. It can hold its own against a sneeze or two. But just smell those ripe blossoms. Nice fragrance, isn't it? I don't smell anything, don't you? If your sense of smell is that poor, you sure you don't have a cold yourself?" They were engrossed in this kind of seemingly light banter when suddenly the frogs fell silent and a loud voice shouted, "You devil, what are you doing here staring into the guest room?" Sado's bodyguards were on their feet instantly. "What is it? Who's out there?" As their cautious eyes scanned the garden, the clatter of small feet receded in the direction of the kitchen. A priest looked in from the veranda, bowed, and said, "Sorry for the disturbance. It's only one of the local children. There's nothing to worry about." "Are you sure?" "Yes, of course. He lives a couple of miles from here. His father worked as a groom until he died recently, but his grandfather is said to have been a samurai, and every time he sees one, he stops and stares with his finger in his mouth." Sado sat up. "You mustn't be too hard on him. If he wants to be a samurai, bring him in. We will have some sweets and talk it over." By now, Iori had reached the kitchen. "Hey, Granny," he shouted. "I've run out of millet. Fill this up for me, will you?" The sack he thrust out to the wrinkled old woman who walked in the kitchen would have held half a bushel. She shouted right back, "Watch your tongue, you beggar. You talk as if we owe you something. You've got a lot of nerve to begin with," said a priest who was washing dishes. "The head priest took pity on you, so we are giving you food, but don't be insolent. When you are asking a favor, do it politely." "I'm not begging. I gave the priest that pouch my father left me. There's money in it, plenty of money. And how much could a groom living out in the sticks leave his son? Are you going to give me the millet, yes or no?" "There you go again. Just look at yourself. You are crazy, taking orders from that fool Ronin. Where did he come from anyway? Who is he? Why should he be eating your food? None of your business. Digging around in that barren plain where there's never going to be a field or a garden or anything else. The whole village is laughing at you. Who asked for your advice? Whatever's wrong with that Ronin's head must be catching. What do you expect to find up there? A pot of gold, like in a fairy tale?" You are not even drying behind the ears, and you are already digging your own grave. Shut up and give me the millet now. The priest was still teasing Iori a couple of minutes later when something cold and slimy hit his face. His eyes popped, then he saw what it was, a warty toad. He screamed and lunged for Iori, but just as he collared him, another priest arrived to announce that the boy was wanted in the samurai's room. The head priest had also heard the commotion and rushed to the kitchen. Did he do something to upset our guest? He asked worriedly. No, Sado just said he would like to talk to him. He would like to give him some sweets too. The head priest hurriedly took Iori by the hand and delivered him personally to Sado's room. As Iori timidly sat down beside the priest, Sado asked, "How old are you? 13? And you want to become a samurai?" "That's right," replied Iori, nodding vigorously. Well, why don't you come and live with me then? You will have to help with the housework at the beginning, but later I will make you one of the apprentice samurai." Iori shook his head silently. Sado, taking this for bashfulness, assured him that the offer was serious. Iori, flashing an angry look, said, "I heard you wanted to give me some sweets. Where are they?" Paling, the head priest slapped him on the wrist. "Don't scold him," Sado said reprovingly. "He liked children and tended to indulge them." "He's right, a man should keep his word. Have the sweets brought in." When they arrived, Iori began stuffing them into his kimono. Sado, a little taken aback, asked, "Aren't you going to eat them here?" "No, my teacher's waiting for me at home." "Oh, you have a teacher?" Without bothering to explain himself, Iori bolted from the room and disappeared through the garden. Sado thought his behavior highly amusing. Not so the head priest, who bowed to the floor two or three times before going to the kitchen in pursuit of Iori. "Where is that insolent brat?" He picked up his sack of millet and left. They listened for a moment, but heard only a discordant screeching. Iori had plucked a leaf from a tree and was trying to improvise a tune. None of the few songs he knew seemed to work. The groom's chanty was too slow, the Bon Festival sounds too complicated. Finally, he settled on a melody resembling the sacred dance music at the local shrine. This suited him well enough, for he liked the dances which his father had sometimes taken him to see. About halfway to Hotengahara, at a point where two streams joined to make a river, he gave a sudden start. The leaf flew from his mouth along with a spray of saliva, and he leaped into the bamboo beside the road. Standing on a crude bridge were 3 or 4 men engaged in a furtive conversation. "It's them!" Iori exclaimed softly. A remembered threat rang in his frightened ears. When mothers in this region scolded their children, they were apt to say, "If you are not good, the mountain devils will come down and get you." The last time they had actually come had been in the fall of the year before last. 20 miles or so from here, in the mountains of Hitachi, there was a shrine dedicated to a mountain deity. Centuries earlier, the people had so feared this god that the villagers had taken turns making annual offerings of grain and women to him. When a community's turn came, the inhabitants had assembled their tribute and gone in a torchlight procession to the shrine. As time went on and it became evident that the god was really only a man, they became lax in making their offerings. During the period of the civil wars, the so-called mountain god had taken to having his tribute collected by foes. Every 2 or 3 years, a pack of brigands armed with halberds, hunting spears, axes, anything to strike terror into the hearts of peaceful citizens, would descend on first one community, then the next, carrying away everything that caught their fancy, including wives and daughters. If their victims put up any resistance, the plundering was accompanied by slaughter. Their last raid still vivid in his memory, Iori cringed in the underbrush. A group of 5 shadows came running across the field to the bridge. Then, through the night mist, another small band, and still another, until the bandits numbered between 40 and 50. Iori held his breath and stared while they debated a course of action. They soon reached a decision. Their leader issued a command and pointed toward the village. The men rushed off like a swarm of locusts. Before long, the mist was rent by a great cacophony. Birds, cattle, horses, the wailing of people young and old. Iori quickly made up his mind to get help from the samurai at the Tokugenji, but the minute he left the shelter of the bamboo, a shout came from the bridge. Who's there? He had not seen the 2 men left behind to stand guard. Swallowing hard, he ran for all he was worth, but his short legs were no match for those of grown men. Where do you think you are going? Shouted the man who got hold of him first. Who are you? Instead of crying like a baby, which might have thrown the man off guard, Iori scratched and fought against the brawny arms imprisoning him. He saw all of us together. He was going to tell somebody. Let's beat him up and dump him in a rice field. I've got a better idea. They carried Iori to the river, threw him down the bank, and jumping down after him, tie him to one of the bridge posts. There, that takes care of him. The 2 ruffians climbed back up to their station on the bridge. The temple bell tolled in the distance. Iori watched horrified as the flames rising from the village dyed the river a bloody red. The sound of babies crying and women wailing came closer and closer. Then wheels rumbled onto the bridge. Half a dozen of the bandits were leading ox carts and horses loaded with loot. Filthy scum, screamed a masculine voice. Give me back my wife. The scuffle on the bridge was brief but fierce. Men shouted, metal clanged, a shriek went up, and a bloody corpse landed at Iori's feet. A second body splashed into the river, spraying his face with blood and water. One by one, farmers fell from the bridge, 6 of them in all. The bodies rose to the surface and floated slowly downstream, but one man, not quite dead, grasped at the reeds and clawed the earth until he had pulled himself out of the water. You, cried Iori, untie this rope. I'll go for help. I'll see that you get your revenge. Then his voice rose to a bellow. Come on, untie me. I've got to save the village. The man lay motionless, straining at his bonds with all his might. Iori finally loosened them enough to squirm down and kick the man in the shoulder. The face that turned toward his was blotched with mud and gore, the eyes dull and uncomprehending. The man crawled painfully closer. With his last ounce of strength, he undid the knots. As the rope fell loose, he collapsed and died. Iori looked cautiously up at the bridge and bit his lip. There were more bodies up there, but luck was with him. A cartwheel had broken through a rotten plank. The thieves hurrying to pull it out didn't notice his escape. Realizing he couldn't make it to the temple, Iori tiptoed along in the shadows until he reached a place shallow enough to cross. When he gained the other bank, he was on the edge of Hotengahara. He covered the remaining mile to the cabin as though lightning was nipping at his heels. As he neared the knoll where the cabin stood, he saw that Musashi was standing outside, looking at the sky. "Come quick," he shouted. "What happened? We have to go to the village. Is that where the fire is?" "Yes, the mountain devils have come again." "Devils? Bandits?" "Yes, at least 40 of them. Please hurry, we have to rescue the villagers." Musashi dug into the cabin and emerged with his swords. While he was tying his sandals, Iori said, "Follow me, I'll show you the way." "No, you stay here." Iori couldn't believe his ears. "It's too dangerous." "I'm not scared. You be in the way." "You don't even know the shortest way there." "The fire's all the guide I need. Now just be a good boy and stay right here." "Yes, sir." Iori nodded obediently, but with deep, deep misgivings. He turned his head toward the village and watched somberly as Musashi streaked off in the direction of the red glow. The bandits had tied their female captives, moaning and screaming, in a row and were pulling them mercilessly toward the bridge. "Stop your squawking," shouted one bandit. "You act like you don't know how to walk. Move." When the women held back, the ruffians lashed them with whips. One woman fell, dragging down others. Seizing the rope and forcing that back on their feet, one man snarled, "Stubborn bitches, what have you got to groan about? Stay here and you walk like slaves the rest of your lives, all for a bit of millet. Look at you, nothing but skin and bones. You'll be a lot better off having fun with us." Picking one of the healthier looking animals, which were all heavily loaded with booty, they tied the rope to it and gave it a sharp slap on the ramp. The slack in the rope was snapped up suddenly, and fresh shrieks rent the air as the women were yanked forward again. Those who fell were dragged along, with their faces scraping the ground. "Stop!" screamed one. "My arms are coming off." A wave of raucous laughter swept through the brigands. At that moment, horse and women came to a dead halt. "What's going on? Somebody's up ahead." All eyes strained to see. "Who's there?" roared one bandit. The silent shadow walking toward them carried a white blade. The bandits, trained to be sensitive to orders, instantly recognized the one they smelled now, blood dripping from the sword. As the man in front fell back clumsily, Musashi sized up the enemy foes. He counted 12, all hard muscle and brutish looking. Recovering from the initial shock, they readied their weapons and took defensive stances. One ran forward with an axe, another carrying a hunter spear approached diagonally, keeping his body low and aiming at Musashi's ribs. The man with the axe was the first to go. "Ow!" Sounding as though he had bitten his own tongue off, he waved crazily and collapsed in a heap. "Don't you know me?" Musashi's voice rang out sharply. "I am the protector of people, a messenger from the god who watches over this village." In the same breath, he seized the spear pointed at him, wrested it from its owner's hands, and threw it violently to the ground. Moving swiftly into the band of ruffians, he was kept busy, countering thrusts from all sides. But after the first surge, made while they still fought with confidence, he had a good idea of what lay ahead. It was a matter not of numbers, but of the opposition's cohesiveness and self-control. Seeing one man after another turn into a blood-spurting missile, the bandits were soon falling back to even greater distances, ever greater distances, until finally they panicked and lost all semblance of organization. Musashi was learning even as he fought, acquiring experience that would lead him to specific methods to be used by a smaller force against a larger one. This was a valuable lesson and couldn't be learned in a fight with a single enemy. His swords were held in their scabbards. His two swords were held in their scabbards. For years he had practiced to master the art of seizing his opponent's weapon and turning it against him. Now he had put steady into practice, taking the sword away from the first man he had encountered. His reason wasn't that his own sword, which he thought of as his soul, was too pure to be sullied by the blood of common brigands. He was being practical. Against such a motley of array of weapons, a blade might get chipped or even broken. When the 5 or 6 survivors fled toward the village, Musashi took a minute or two to relax and catch his breath, fully expecting them to return with reinforcements. Then he freed the women and ordered those who could stand to take care of the others. After some words of comfort and encouragement, he told them it was up to them to save their parents and children and husbands. "You'll be miserable if you survived and they perish, wouldn't you?" he asked. There was a murmur of agreement. "You yourselves have the strength to protect yourselves and save the others. But you don't know how to use that strength. That's why you are at the mercy of outlaws. We are going to change that. I'm going to help you by showing you how to use the power you have. The first thing you do is arm yourselves." He had them collect the weapons lying about and distributed one to each of the other women. "Now follow me and do just as I say. You mustn't be afraid, trying to believe that the god of this district is on your side." As he led the women toward the burning village, other victims emerged from the shadows and joined them. Soon the group had grown into a small army of nearly 100 people. Women tearfully hugged loved ones, daughters were reunited with parents, wives with husbands, mothers with children. As, at first, as the women described how Musashi had dealt with the bandits, the men listened with shocked expressions on their faces, not believing that this could be the idiot Ronin of Hotengahara. When they did accept it, their gratitude was obvious, despite the barrier imposed by their dialect. Turning to the men, Musashi told them to find weapons. Anything will do, even a good heavy stick or a length of fresh bamboo. No one disobeyed or even questioned his orders. Musashi asked, "How many bandits are there in all?" "About 50. How many houses in the village?" 70. Musashi calculated that there was probably a total of 700 or 800 people. Even allowing for old people and children, the brigands would still be outnumbered by as much as 10 to 1. He smiled grimly at the thought that these peaceful villagers had believed they had no recourse but to throw up their hands in despair. He knew that if something was not done, the atrocity would be repeated. Tonight he wanted to accomplish 2 things: show the villagers how to protect themselves and see that the brigands were banished forever. "Sir," cried a man who had just come from the village, "they are on their way here." Though the villagers were armed now, the news made them uneasy. They showed signs of breaking and running. To restore confidence, Musashi said loudly, "There's nothing to be alarmed about. I was expecting this. I want you to hide on both sides of the road, but first listen to my instructions." He talked rapidly but calmly, briefly repeating points for emphasis. "When they get here, I will let them attack me. Then I will pretend to run away. They will follow me. You, all of you, stay where you are. I won't need any help. After a time, they will come back. When they do attack, make lots of noise, take them by surprise, strike at their sides, legs, chest, any area that is unguarded. When you have taken care of the first bench, hide again and wait for the next one. Keep doing this until they are all dead. He barely had time to finish and the peasant to disperse before the marauders appear. From their dress and lack of coordination, Musashi guessed that theirs was a primitive fighting force of a sort that might have been common long ago when men hunted and fished for sustenance. The name Tokugawa meant nothing to them, no more than did Toyotomi. The mountains were their tribal home. The villagers existed to provide them with food and supplies. Stopped, ordered the men at the head of the pack. There were about 20 of them, some with crude swords, some with lances, one with a battle axe, another with a rusty spear. Silhouetted against the glow of the fire, their bodies looked like demonic, jet black shadows. Is he the one? Yes, that's him. All right. Some, some 60 feet ahead of them, Musashi stood his ground, blocking the road. Disconcerted, they began to doubt their own strength, and for a short time, none of them moved. But only for a moment, then Musashi's blazing eyes started to pull them inexorably toward him. You, the son of a bitch, trying to get in our way? Right, roared Musashi, raising his sword and tearing into them. There was a loud reverberation, followed by a whirlwind fray in which it was impossible to make out individual movements. It was like a spinning swarm of winged ants. The rice fields on one side of the road and the embankment lined with trees and bushes on the other were ideal for Musashi, since they provided a measure of cover, but after the first skirmish he executed a strategic withdrawal. See that? The bastards running away. After him, they pursued him to a far corner of the nearest field, where he turned and faced them. With nothing behind him, his position seemed worse, but he kept his opponents at bay by moving swiftly to right and left. Then, the moment one of them made a false move, Musashi struck. His dark form seemed to flit from place to place, a geyser of blood rising before him each time he paused. The bandits who were not killed were soon too dazed to fight, while Musashi grew sharper with every strike. It was a different sort of battle from the one at Ichijoji. He did not have the feeling of standing on the border between life and death, but he had reached a plane of selflessness, body and sword performing without the need of conscious thought. His attackers fled in complete disarray. A whisper went along the line of villagers. They are coming. Then a group of them jumped out of hiding and fell upon the first two or three bandits, killing them almost effortlessly. The farmers melted into the darkness again, and the process was repeated until all the bandits had been ambushed and slain. Counting the corpses bolstered the villagers' confidence. They are not so strong after all, gloated one man. Wait, here comes another one. Get him. No, don't attack, it's the Ronin. With a minimum of confusion, they line up along the road like soldiers being reviewed by their general. All eyes were fixed on Musashi's bloody clothing and dripping sword, whose blade was chipped in a dozen places. He threw it away and picked up a lance. Our work is not done, he said. Get yourself some weapons and follow me. By combining your strength, you can drive the marauders out of the village and rescue your families. Not one man hesitated. The women and children also found weapons and followed along. The damage to the village was not as extensive as they had feared, because the dwellings were set well apart, but the terrified farm animals were raising a great ruckus, and somewhere a baby was crying its lungs out. Loud popping noises came from the roadside. where the fire had spread to a grove of green bamboo. The bandits were nowhere in sight. "Where are they?" asked Musashi. "I seem to smell sake." Why would there be a lot of sake in one place? The villagers were so absorbed in gaping at the fires that nobody had noticed the smell, but one of them said, "Must be the village headman's house. He has got barrels of sake." "Then that's where we will find them," said Musashi. As they advanced, more men came out of hiding and joined their ranks. Musashi was gratified by the growing spirit of unity. "That's it, there," said one man, pointing out a large house surrounded by an earthen wall. While the peasants were getting themselves organized, Musashi scaled the wall and invaded the bandit stronghold. The leader and his chief lieutenants were ensconced in a large dirt floor room, swilling sake and focusing their attentions on young girls they were holding captive. "Don't get excited," the leader shouted angrily in a rough mountain dialect. "He's only one man. I shouldn't have to do anything myself. The rest of you take care of him." He was upbraiding an underling who had rushed in with the news of the defeat outside the village. As their chief fell silent, the others became aware of the hum of angry voices beyond the wall and stared uneasily. Dropping half-eaten chickens and sake cups, they jumped to their feet and instinctively reached for their weapons. Then they stood there, staring at the entrance to the room. Musashi, using his lance as a pole, vaulted through a high side window, landing directly behind the chief. The men whirled around only to be impaled on the lance. Letting out a fearsome "wah!" he grabbed with both hands the lance lodged in his chest. Musashi calmly let go of the lance, and the man toppled face down on the ground, the blade and most of the shaft projecting from his back. The second man to attack Musashi was relieved of his sword. Musashi sliced him through, brought the blade down on the head of a third man, and thrust it into the chest of a fourth. The others made helter-skelter for the door. Musashi hurled the sword at them, and in a continuation of the same motion, extricated the lance from the chief's body. "Don't move," he bellowed. He charged with the lance held horizontally, parting the bandits like water struck with a pole. This gave him enough room to make effective use of the long weapon, which he now swung with a deftness that tested the very resiliency of its black oak shaft, striking sideways, slicing downward, thrusting viciously forward. The bandits attempting to get out the gate found their way blocked by the armed villagers. Some climbed the wall. When they hit the ground, most were slaughtered on the spot. Of the few who succeeded in escaping, nearly all received crippling wounds. For a time, the air was filled with shouts of triumph from young and old, male and female, as the first flush of victory subsided, man and wife, parents and children hugged each other and shed tears of joy. In the midst of this ecstatic scene, someone asked, "What if they come back?" There was a moment of sudden, anxious stillness. "They won't be back," Musashi said firmly, "not to this village. But don't be overconfident. Your business is using plows, not swords. If you grow too proud of your fighting ability, the punishment heaven will mete out to you will be worse than any raid by mountain devils." "Did you find out what happened?" Nagaoka Sado asked his two samurai when they got back to the Tokugenji. In the distance, across field and swamp, he could see that the light of the fires in the village was fading. "Everything's quieted everything quieted down now? Did you chase the bandits away? How much damage was done in the village? The villagers killed all but a few of them before we got there. The others got away. Well, that's odd. He looked surprised, for if this was true, he had some thinking to do about the way of governing in his own lost district. On leaving the temple the following day, he directed his horse toward the village, saying, "It's out of the way, but let's have a look." A priest came along to show them the way, and while they rode, Sado observed, "Those bodies along the roadside don't look to me as though they were cut down by farmers," and asked his samurai for more details. The villagers, foregoing sleep, were hard at work, burying corpses and cleaning up debris from the conflagration. But when they saw Sado and the samurai, they ran inside their houses and hid. "Get one of the villagers to come here and let's find out exactly what happened," he said to the priest. The man who came back with the priest gave them a fairly detailed account of the night's events. "Now it begins to make sense," Sado said, nodding. "What's this Ronin's name?" The peasant, never having heard Musashi's name, cocked his head to one side. When Sado insisted on knowing it, the priest asked about for a time and came up with the required information. "Miyamoto Musashi," Sado said thoughtfully. "Is he the man the boy spoke of as his teacher?" "That's right. From the way he has been trying to develop a piece of wasteland on Hotingahara, the villagers thought he was a little soft in the head." "I would like to meet him," said Sado, but then he remembered the work waiting for him in Edo. "Never mind, I will talk to him the next time I come out here." He turned his horse around and left the peasant standing by the road. A few minutes later, he reined up in front of the village headman's gate. There, written in shiny ink on a fresh board, hung a sign, "Reminder for the people of the village. Your plow is your sword is your plow. Walking in the fields, don't forget the invasion. Thinking of the invasion, don't forget your fields. All things must be balanced and integrated. Most important, do not oppose the way of successive generations." Who wrote this? The headman had finally come out and was now bowing on the ground before Sado. "Musashi," he answered. Turning to the priest, Sado said, "Thank you for bringing us here. It's too bad I couldn't meet this Musashi, but just now I don't have the time. I will be back this way before long." First planting. The management of the palatial Hosokawa residence in Edo, as well as the performance of the fifth duties to the shogun, was entrusted to a man still in his early 20s, Tadatoshi, the eldest son of the daimyo Hosokawa Tadaoki. The father, a celebrated general who also enjoyed a reputation as a poet and master of the tea ceremony, preferred to live at the large Kokura fief in Busan province on the island of Kyushu. Though Nagaoka Sado and a number of other trusted retainers were assigned to assist the young man, this was not because he was in any way incompetent. He was not only accepted as a peer by the powerful vassals closest to the shogun, but had distinguished himself as an energetic and far-sighted administrator. In fact, he seemed more in tune with the peace and prosperity of the times than the older lords, who had been nurtured on constant warfare. At the moment, Sado was walking in the general direction of the riding ground. "Have you seen the young lord?" he asked of an apprentice samurai coming toward him. "I believe he's at the archery range. As Sado threaded his way down a narrow path, he heard a voice asking, "May I have a word with you?" Sado stopped, and Iwama Kakube, a vassal respected for his shrewdness and practicality, came up to him. "You are going to talk with his lordship?" he asked. "Yes, if you are not in a hurry, there's a little matter I would like to consult with you about. Why don't we sit down over there?" As they walked the few steps to a rustic arbor, Kakube said, "I have a favor to ask. If you have a chance during your talk, there's a man I would like to recommend to the young lord. Someone wanting to serve the house of Hosokawa. Yes, I know all sorts of people come to you with the same request, but this man is very unusual. Is he one of those men interested only in security and a stipend? Definitely not. He is related to my wife. He has been living with us since he came from Iwakuni. He came up from Iwakuni a couple of years ago, so I know him quite well. Iwakuni, the house of Kikawa, held Suo province before the Battle of Sekigahara. Is he one of their ronins? No, he's the son of a rural samurai. His name's Sasaki Kojiro. He's still young, but he was trained in the Tomita style of Kanimaki Chisai, and he learned the techniques of drawing a sword with lightning swiftness from Lord Katayama Hisayasu of Hoki. He has even created a style of his own, which he calls Ganru. Kakube went on, listing in detail Kojiro's various exploits and accomplishments. Sado was not really listening. His mind had gone back to his last visit to the Tokugenji, though he was sure, even from the little he had seen and heard, that Musashi was the right sort of man for the house of Hosokawa. He had intended to meet him personally before recommending him to his master. In the meantime, a year and a half had slipped by without his finding an opportunity to visit Hotengahara. When Kakube finished, Sato said, "I will do what I can for you," and continue on to the archery range. Tadatoshi was engaged in a contest with some vassals of his own age, none of whom was remotely a match for him. His shots, unerringly on target, were executed with flawless style. A number of retainers had chided him for taking archery so seriously, arguing that in an age of gun and lance, neither sword nor bow was no longer of much use in actual combat. To this he had replied cryptically, "My arrows are aimed at the spirit." The Hosokawa retainers had the highest respect for Tadatoshi and would have served under him with enthusiasm even if his father, to whom they were also devoted, had not been a man of substantial accomplishments. At the moment, Sado regretted the promise he had just made to Kakube. Tadayoshi was not a man to whom one lightly recommended prospective retainers. Wiping the sweat off his face, Tadatoshi walked past several young samurai with whom he had been talking and laughing. Catching sight of Sado, he called, "How about it, ancient one? Have a shot?" "I make it a rule to compete only against adults," Sado replied. "So you still think of us as as little boys with our hair tied up on our heads? Have you forgotten the Battle of Yamasaki, Nirayama Castle? I have been commended for my performance on the battlefield, you know. Besides, I go in for real archery, not..." "Haha, sorry I mentioned it. I didn't mean to get you started again." The others joined in the laughter. Slipping his arm out of his sleeve, Tadatoshi became serious and asked, "Did you come to discuss something?" After going over a number of routine matters, Sado said, "Kakube says he has a samurai to recommend to you." For a moment there was a faraway look in Tadatoshi's eyes. "I suppose he's talking about Sasaki Kojiro. He has been mentioned several times. Why don't you call him in and have a look at him? Is he any good? Is he really good? Shouldn't you see for yourself?" Tadatoshi put on his glove and accepted an arrow from an attendant. "I will take a look at Kakube's man," he said. "I would also like to see that Ronin you mentioned. Miyamoto Musashi, was it? Oh, you remember? I do. You are the one who seems to have forgotten." "Not at all, but being so busy, I haven't had a chance to go out to Shimosa. If you think you have found someone, you should take the time. I'm surprised at you, Sado, letting something so important wait until you have got other business to take you out there. It's not like you. I'm sorry, there are always too many men looking for positions. I thought you had forgotten about it. I suppose I should have brought it up again. Indeed, you should have. I don't necessarily accept other people's recommendations, but I'm eager to see anyone old Sado considered suitable. Understand?" Sado apologized again before taking his leave. He went directly to his own house and without further ado had a fresh horse saddled and set out for Hotengahara. "Isn't this Hotengahara?" Sato Genzo, Sado's attendant, said. "That's what I thought, but this is no wilderness. There are rice fields all over. The place they were trying to develop must be nearer the mountains." They had already gone a good distance beyond the Tokugenji and would soon be on the high road to Hitachi, It was late afternoon, and the white herons splashing about in the paddies made the water seem like powder. Along the river bank and in the shadows of the haylocks grew patches of hemp and waving stalks of barley. "Look over there, sir," said Genzo. "What is it?" "There's a group of farmers." "So there is. They seem to be bowing to the ground one by one, don't they? It looks like some sort of religious ceremony." With a snap of the reins, Genzo forded the river fast, making sure it was safe for Sado to follow. "You there?" called Genzo. The farmers, looking surprised, spread out from their cycle to face the visitors. They were standing in front of a small cabin, and Sado could see that the object they had been bowing before was a tiny wooden shrine, no larger than a bird cage. There were about 50 of them, on their way home from work, it appeared, for their tools had all been washed. A priest came forward, saying, "It's Nagaoka Sado, isn't it? What a pleasant surprise! And you are from the Tokugenji, aren't you? I believe you are the one who guided me to the village after the bandit raid." "That's right. Have you come to pay a call at the temple?" "No, not this time. I will be going back right away. Could you tell me where I might find that Ronin named Miyamoto Musashi?" "He's not here anymore. He left very suddenly." "Left suddenly? Why should he do that?" "One day last month, the villagers decided to take a day off and celebrate the progress that has been made here. You can see for yourself how green it is now. Well, the morning after that, Musashi and the boy Iori were gone." The priest looked around as though half expecting Musashi to materialize out of the air. In response to Sado's prompting, the priest filled in the details of his story. After the village had strengthened its defenses under Musashi's leadership, The farmers were so thankful for the prospect of living in peace that they practically deified him. Even the ones who had ridiculed him most cruelly had come forward to help with the development project. Musashi treated them all fairly and equally, first convincing them that it was pointless to live like animals. He then tried to impress upon them the importance of exerting a little extra effort so as to give their children a chance for a better life. To be real human beings, he told them, they must work for the sake of prosperity, with 40 or 50 villagers pitching in to help each day. By fall, they were able to keep the floodwaters under control. When winter came, they plowed, and in the spring, they drew water from the new irrigation ditches and transplanted the rice seedlings. By early summer, the rice was thriving, while in the dry fields, hemp and barley were already a foot high. In another year, the crop would double, the year after that triple. Villagers began to drop in at the cabin to pay their respects, thanking Musashi from the bottom of their hearts, the women bearing gifts of vegetables. On the day of the celebration, the men arrived with great jars of sake and all took part in performing a sacred dance, accompanied by drums and flutes. With the villagers gathered around him, Musashi had assured them that it was not his strength but theirs. All I did was show you how to use the energy you possess. Then he had taken the priest aside to tell him that he was concerned about their relying on a vagabond like him. Even without me, he said, they should have confidence in themselves and maintain solidarity. He had then taken out a statue of Canon he had carved and given it to the priest. The morning after the celebration, the village was in an uproar. He's gone, he can't be. Yes, he disappeared. The cabin's empty. Grief-stricken, none of the farmers went near the fields that day. When he heard about it, the priest reproached them sharply for their ingratitude, urging them to remember what they had been taught and sadly coaxing them to carry on the work that had been started. Later, the villagers had built the tiny shrine and placed the treasured image of Canon in it. They paid their respects to Musashi morning and evening on their way to and from the fields. Sado thanked the priest for the information, concealing the fact that he was disconsolate as only a man of his position could do. As his horse made its way back through the evening mist of late spring, he thought uneasily, I shouldn't have put off coming. I was derelict in my duty, and now I have failed my lord. On the east bank of the Sumida River, where the flies, on the east bank of the Sumida River, where the road from Shimosa converged with a branch of the Oshu High Road, rose a great barrier with an imposing gate, ample evidence of the firm roof of Aoyama Tadanari, the new magistrate of Edo. Musashi stood in line, idly waiting his turn, Iori at his side. When he had passed through Edo 3 years earlier, entering and leaving the city had been a simple matter. Even at this distance, he could see that there were far more houses than before, fewer open spaces. You there, Ronin, you are next. Two officials in leather hakama began frisking Musashi with great thoroughness, while a third glared at him and asked questions. What business do you have in the capital? Nothing specific, no special business, eh? Well, I'm a Shugyosha. I suppose it could be said that studying to be a samurai is my business. The man was silent. Musashi grinned. Where were you born? In the village of Miyamoto. district of Yoshino, Mimasaka province. Your master, I have none. Who furnishes your travel money? No one. I carve statues and draw pictures. Sometimes I can exchange them for food and lodging. Often I stay at temples. Occasionally I give lessons in the sword. One way or another I manage. Where are you coming from? For the past 2 years I have been farming in the Hotengahara in Shimosa. I decided I didn't want to do that for the rest of my life, so I have come here. Do you have a place to stay in Edo? No one can enter the city unless he has relatives or a place to stay, a place to live. Yes, replied Musashi on the spur of the moment. He saw that if he tried to stick to the truth, there was going to be no end to it. Well, Yagyu Munenori, Lord of Tajima. The official's mouth dropped open. Musashi, amused at the man's reaction, congratulated himself. The risk of being caught in a lie did not trouble him greatly. He felt that the Yagyus must have heard about him from Takuan. It seemed unlikely they would deny all acquaintance with him if questioned. It might even be that Takuan was in Edo now. If so, Musashi had his means of introduction. It was too late to have a bout with Seiki Shusai, but he longed to have one with Munenori, his father's successor in the Yagyu style and a personal tutor of the shogun. The name acted like magic. Well, well, said the official amiably. If you are connected with the house of Yagyu, I'm sorry to have troubled you. As you must realize, there are all sorts of samurai on the road. We have to be particularly careful about anyone who appears to be a ronin. Orders, you know, after a few more questions. He said, you can go now. After a few more questions for the sake of form or face, he said, you can go now, and personally escorted Musashi to the gate. Sir, Iori asked when they were on the other side, why are they so careful about Ronin and nobody else? They are on the lookout for enemy spies. What spy would be stupid enough to come here looking like a Ronin? The officials are pretty dumb, them and their stupid questions. They made us miss the ferry. Shh, they will all hear you. Don't worry about the ferry. You can look at Mount Fuji while we are waiting for the next one. Did you know you could see it from here? So what? We could see it from Hotengahara too? Yes, but it's different here, huh? Fuji's never the same. It varies from day to day, hour to hour. Looks the same to me. It's not though, it changes. Time, weather, season, the place you are looking at it from. It differs too according to the person who's looking at it according to his heart. And impressed, Iori picked up a flat stone and sent it skimming across the water. After amusing himself in this fashion for a few minutes, he came back to Musashi and asked, are we really going to Lord Yagyu's house? I will have to think about that. Isn't that what you told the god? Yes, I intend to go, but it's not all that simple. He's a daimyo, you know. He must be awfully important. That's what I want to be when I grow up. Important? Mm, you shouldn't aim so low. What do you mean? Look at Mount Fuji. I will never be like Mount Fuji. Instead of wanting to be like this or that, make yourself into a silent, immovable giant. That's what the mountain is. Don't waste your time trying to impress people. If you become the sort of man people can respect, they will respect you without your doing anything. Musashi's words didn't have time to sink in. Just then, Iori shouted, look, here comes the ferry, and ran ahead to be the first one on board. The Sumida River was a steady in contrast. wide in places, narrow in others, shallow here and deep there. At high tide, the waves washing the banks took on a muddy hue. Sometimes the estuary swelled to twice its normal width. At the point where the ferry crossed, it was virtually an inlet of the bay. The sky was clear, the water